This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of GolfTalk right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Got a very special guest in this week's episode. I'm joined by a mainstay of the European Tour, a legend of Scottish golf, Andrew Oldcorn. Andrew, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you on the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Brilliant. How you been? How's everything been since golf stopped?
Well, pretty much like everybody else. My competitive career sort of ground to a halt for 18 months. So, as a family, we've just been, getting through it. My two girls are both at Glasgow University. So one's in their third year and the other one's been in their first year. So unfortunate for the younger one because she's had to sort of bear the brunt of her first year not being the way it should be. But myself and my wife have just sort of done our best, like everybody else, to get through it and take it on the chin and follow the rules. But I feel sorry for the younger folk because I can remember what I was like when I was 18, 19, 20, and not being able to do that. Those sort of social, side of your life must be extremely difficult. But in a professional sense, it's obviously been frustrating because grinding to a halt like we did. The whole of last year was called off on the Stacia Tour, which is now Legends Tour, and that was hugely disappointing when that decision was made in June. I think a few of us thought we could have played maybe later in the year, but it's been. I'm unfortunately not really at a stage in my life at my age where I can take 18 months to 2 years out and not have quite a significant effect. So
in
terms of longevity more than anything else. So,
have you been able to play? Like, have you been able to kind of go out?
Yeah, no, I mean, like last year after the first lockdown, as soon as we came out of that, I was able to play with my friends at Rathler Park Golf Club on the outskirts of Edinburgh here, where I'm, an honorary member and an ambassador now. So, I've played loads and loads of social golf with my mates, and to be honest with you, I've really, really enjoyed that. It's something that I've not done probably. I've always played social golf with them in the winter.
Yeah.
They've been long-term friends of mine from school days, and we're all still members there. So, but to play so much social golf with them in the last year, has been good. It's been good and it's bad because it makes me less motivated to maybe go back to do my job. So it's been a double-edged sword.
Definitely. We'll move into your early years. We'll start off with, when did you first pick up a golf club and when did you first get the bug for golf?
Okay. I think I first possibly picked up a golf club when I was about 10, 11 years old. I was tagging round with my dad and his brother, my Uncle Vic. Uncle Vic lived in Troon, and he was a member at the courses at Loch Green, Darley, and Fullerton there. So his daughters, my cousins, they're a little bit older than me, and they started to take up golf, and my dad started to take up golf because of his elder brother played it in Troon. So when we moved up to Scotland from Lancashire, my dad had already started playing golf. So I tagged along and I said, look, can I have a go? And, I didn't really probably start playing properly, so to speak, till maybe my own little set of wee golf clubs, maybe about a year after that. I was an early starter. There's no doubt about that. I had the bug early, and because family played in that respect, it was easy for me to fit in.
What was the highlights of your junior days before you went into amateur?
Oh boy. I can remember, my dad was very fortunate that he joined Dalmahoy Golf Club on the west side of Edinburgh, which was at that time, quite a prestigious course in terms of status. You know, it was, I can remember in the early 70s, that would be, you know, it was holding golf tournaments, you know, European Tour events, even went on to hold, I went on to play quite a few Scottish PGAs there, but so I joined there not long after my dad joined, so I became a junior member there when I was about 12, 13. And we had a very good source of encouragement there. We had a very good secretary, an old fella called Gilbert Clark, old RAF boy. But he was great with juniors. He really wanted juniors to be, he saw the future of the club being juniors. Now, back in those days, 70s, you know, some courses, you were treated like lepers if you were juniors until you reached your 18th birthday, and they didn't really give us much encouragement. But Dalmahoy was very different. It really did encourage juniors, and we had a good, strong junior section there. So, you know, I just started to play junior medals, and I learned to play golf on the West Course at Dalmahoy. Sort of a bit of a spiritual home for me, and I was actually playing a few holes there the other day, strangely enough, just hitting a few balls, and but that's where I learned to play. Big course in those days was too big for me. I couldn't, it was too long. We weren't allowed to play in it anyway unless we were their parents. So but yeah, I was a very good environment for me, because as I grew older there, you know, they had a very good pro there called David Ingram, who played on the European Tour for a spell. He played, he was part of the BCAL Lions team with Ewan Murray and lots of other Scottish golfers. Brian Barnes was one of them. And he was very encouraging for me, David. I was very lucky to have him, and he had a couple of really good assistants there as well, who really helped me in my formative years. You know, he could give me lessons on the course, and he stood up for me when eventually Gilbert Clark, the secretary, said, look, you know, your handicap's low enough now, you can go and play in senior medals if you want. And that drew a few eyebrows from a few old fuddy-duddies who, you know, the usual thing, why is he allowed to play in the medal? But they were sort of shushed by David and his staff and Gilbert. So and there was loads of great players, you know, senior, what I call, when I say senior, I mean, you know, adult members. I had a member there called Scott McDonald, a guy who went on to play Walker Cup, and I had loads of guys who played county golf and Scottish internationalists. And so it was a really good environment for me as a very young person to grow up in. I got lots of encouragement, most of it from the club, and my dad was my main tutor, really.
Brilliant. We'll move into your amateur career as well. Let's see, when you're kind of making your way in the amateur level, who was coming through at the same time as you thought would go on and do really well?
Once I sort of progressed to, you know, winning a few things like Lowland Boys Championships, and then into international recognition as a boy, as a junior. The guys that were, well, actually Sandy Lyle was prominent at that stage. He was just a wee bit older than me, Sandy, but he was a prodigy, obviously, even then. And but as I progressed through my amateur career, and I got to the level of, you know, home internationals, Walker Cup, Eisenhower, there was two standout players who I figured that those were the guys I had to. That's the level I had to get to. One was Philip Walton, who obviously went on to have a great pro career, played Ryder Cup. And another was a guy who was probably the standout, was a guy called Phil Parkin, Welsh guy. Phil Parkin, he actually went on to work as a commentator once he gave up playing professionally in America. But he was an outstanding player, Phil Parkin. Those were the two. I mean, younger guys won't have a clue who Phil Parkin is, but they'll have heard of Philip Walton. But there was another guy, an English guy called Stephen Kepler, who became a good friend of mine. He went on to live in the States as well. But they were probably two of the three. And then you had the stalwarts, George McGregor, Scottish player, and Irish players, Arthur Pearce, who played with me in the Walker Cup. So yeah, they were great guys to be around. Great guys.
Brilliant. 1982, you won the English Amateur. Was that a big step for you in kind of thinking you could do this full time?
Definitely. That's absolutely. You know, I'd had a sort of natural progression through, you know, younger stages. You know, won the Scottish Youth Championship the first time it was played, and then got to the level of international golf. And but at that stage, I still had no ambitions as to a further career in golf.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt inside me that unless I could do something at the very, very top level in amateur golf, I didn't want to turn pro and be a struggling pro. Mm-hmm. So if I couldn't achieve the top level in amateur golf, I didn't want to turn pro. So that was a big highlight, because, you know, to win your national championship at amateur golf is the highest you can go.
Yeah.
And then you're really staring at the two big teams, which back in my year, and still are, Walker Cup. But, you know, I think back when I played, the Eisenhower team was the mixture of Great Britain and Ireland. I know that now they've made it international teams, mm-hmm. which I think is a shame. It's diluted the essence of that four-man team was the team to get into, because you're the best four in the whole Great Britain and Ireland. So, mm-hmm. So that was my progression. I played Walker Cup in '83 mm-hmm. at the same venue where I won the English Amateur mm-hmm. at Hoylake. So whether that had a great deal to do with the fact that I'd won 8 or 9 matches in match play the year before in 1982 to when we played the Walker Cup match in '83, and obviously I had a great match myself, became the first player ever to win 4 games out of 4. And I didn't know that record existed until I did it, until Charlie Green told me at the end when I did it. But so I was disappointed the team lost. Obviously, it was a narrow defeat, but you know, I had Brad Faxon was in the other team.
Was he? Could you see even then he was as good on the green?
I never played a match against Brad.
Right.
But,
okay.
I know from Philip Walton, who was at college in Oklahoma at the time, mm-hmm. and he said, "Look, Faxon is there on the greens is just, you know." So, you know, Philip had a fair input because he was at college in America, and 2 other guys in their team were at college in America. Yeah. Charlie Green, who was the captain of the team I played with, you know, obviously a legendary name in Scottish amateur golf, he took quite a bit of advice from the guys that were at college in America as to some of the guys that we didn't know their team at all. Yeah. Other than, you know, so, but yeah, I mean, you know, there was a couple other guys that went on to play US Tour golf over there, Willie Wood, Rick Fair, yeah, even now we go through all the stages and it's quite, you know, opportunity. You Walker Cups next week, obviously in America, but you look at more specifically now, if you look at all the American teams that play every biennial time, they seem to produce players now that become household names within 2 or 3 years. Yeah, but the progression from where they are up into world golf is incredible. You know, even the last couple of teams they've had, you've got Morikawa and guys like that come straight out winning. So it just shows you how times have changed, because it took us quite a while to get a foothold in golf. But so yeah, that was. Yeah, I sometimes cherish my amateur days, even though I can't really remember them very well, but I know that I really enjoyed my golf at that time.
Brilliant. We'll move into kind of the stages of turning pro. We'll start off with the Q School in 1983. Like, how did you? Was it after the Walker Cup? Like, did you think that was a step I was going to go pro and try?
Yeah, I had a decision that I'd really reached. You know, it was either stay as a career amateur and keep playing, potentially trying to play Walker Cups, winning national championships, or turned pro, and I'd pretty much exhausted anything I could achieve. I'd won. I'd won the national championship. I'd won various other things. I'd played in the Walker Cup. I played in the Eisenhower. So I'd said to my family, my father, my mum and dad, I said, look, if I don't do this, I'll regret it forever. I think I'm potentially good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so gave it a go. And back in those days, it was the last time it was ever done. But some of my Scottish colleagues actually turned pro at the same time, like Campbell Elliott, Steve McAllister. We all went to the same tour school. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, it was at La Manga, and it was 2 separate weeks. So there was too many people in the fields, basically. So there was no qualifiers. There's not the way it's made it is now. You various stages to get to the finals.
Yeah.
You just, if you wanted to go, you could just go, and that's why they had to make it over 2 separate weeks. And each week they gave 30 players a card, and I played the second week, and I won it. And so that was me ready for. That was me. I had my job. I was ready to go. 1984 was my first year.
And how did you find the first kind of 3 years in the tour? How did you kind of find the step up?
I don't really think it was more the step up in quality, or what it was more what we had to go through in the lifestyle back then. Mm-hmm. It was a massive change from what I was used to. I had traveled a little bit with my amateur golf over the years, but not as extensively as I was going to have to do playing on the European Tour. And that was the last year. My first year was the last year that they did if you weren't exempt, which I wasn't, I just got a card from the school. The only people that were exempt were the top 60 from the previous year's order of merit. They could play any week. Everybody else either fall into the category of Monday pre-qualifier, or if you made the cut in a tournament, you didn't have to Monday pre-qualify the next week, you got in. Right. But because I was new and I had no order of merit status from the year before, I had no safety net every week. So if I didn't get the cut, I had to rush literally from various venues on a Friday night or a Saturday morning to a different country to find a pre-qualifying course that was not the course that the tournament was on, and then try and pre-qualify. So it wasn't really the golf that I found difficult. It was the lifestyle. And I must admit, I questioned myself many times that first year whether I was going to do it. Yeah. I remember 2 or 3 times coming home saying to my parents, I can't do this. It's just too difficult. It's a step up anyway in terms of playing professional golf, but the change in mindset of all that was. But I managed to do it. I somehow just managed to do it. I finished 105th in the order of merit. So Ken Schofield, who was the tour boss at that time, it was his idea to stop all this Monday pre-qualifying, which was great for me. Yeah. And everybody, so the top 125, that's where the top 125 first started. If you were in the top 125, you got your card and that's it. You could play every tournament the following year. So they got rid of Monday pre-qualifying. I only had to do 1 year of it. And to be honest with you, I don't think I would have managed to do any more than another year. I had to do it again and again and again. I don't think I would have done it. Mm-hmm. I would like to think I would have found a way, but it was a hard. There was loads of my colleagues that I played amateur golf with that just couldn't do it. They fell by the wayside, and they were good enough, but it was so difficult.
Yeah. We'll move on to 1987. That was you had a big tournament there. You finished third in a tournament at Birkdale, finishing in front of like Nick Faldo, Sam Torrance and Ian Baker-Finch were in that, where you finished above them. Was that a big confidence boost at that time for you to like finish in the front?
Yeah, because like to be honest with you, I hadn't really after that first year, 84, I'd got a foothold. You know, the standard was nowhere near as high back then as it started to become in various periods. But you know, you had to actually play pretty poor to lose your card in 125, because you know the majority of the players were British and Irish. You didn't have so many Australians, New Zealand, American, you know, international players from Europe. They weren't there back then. So you know, I'd had a natural progression over 2 or 3 years, but I still wasn't. I wasn't playing as well as I should have been playing. I'd kept my car. But so we got to 87 and it was Birkdale. That was one of my favourite courses. And I did finish, I think, yeah, as you say, finished third. So that was probably my best result. Yeah. Mark O'Meara won there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just shows you horses for courses, because a few years later you won the Open Championship there. But when you do beat calibre players like that in a tournament, you know, it does. It was the Lawrence Bartley International Tournament, I think. So, but certainly, the first phase of my professional career, I probably only give myself somewhere between 5 and 6 out of 10. Up until, you know, a couple of years later, where it all came to a grinding halt. But with my health, but yeah, I didn't do as well as I probably should have done. I struggled more. I struggled more than I thought I would, and I that was more adapting to everything with the job. Yeah. Strangely enough, you know, I get asked this question quite a lot, especially by younger players or some guys in pro-ams that I play with all the time. The actual playing the golf is the easy part. It's everything else that goes with it that you have to find a way of adapting to, and that can take. Some people can just like that. They can fall into the way of doing it just like that. Some guys can never do it and they just get lost by the wayside. It took me longer than I wanted to, and it probably, you know, I was still struggling to find a way to get the best out of myself and adapt to the way of the lifestyle of the job.
Yeah, we'll move on to when the kind of chronic fatigue sets in. When did you first notice that it was becoming a problem?
I came on just very rapidly. We were in Tenerife on the same golf course. They played this last week, actually. And yeah, just came in out of nowhere. Probably I went home. I can remember going home and trying to play again about 2 or 3 weeks later in Mallorca, and I felt even worse than I did in Tenerife. And that was it. It just snowballed from there that year. And back then there was no real understanding of what it was I had, or what it was. There was no treatment. There's no experts in the field to help me. So basically the rest of the year I just couldn't compete. I couldn't play. I didn't play anything. I didn't European Tour golf. I didn't play Tartan Tour golf. I didn't play anything.
And how much did that affect you? How much did that affect you mentally as well?
Oh, huge. Massive. I mean, you know, unfortunately the breakdown of a relationship at the same time, you know, my first marriage didn't survive that period either, and I was in a very bad place, really bad, physically and mentally. Just couldn't see my way out of it, and I made a submission to the tour at the end of that year in the autumn to Ken Schofield and David Garland. I said, look, I've got all the medical stuff here I can give you. I still don't really know what it is, but is there any way I can have my exemption carried over? So basically it was a medical extension, and they didn't know what to do because nobody had ever asked for one until that, which I find quite bizarre. that, you know, somebody had never been injured for a long period of time or suffered with their health. So I think Mark James was just elected as the chairman of the tournament committee at the time, and he said, yeah, we've got to help him. So they gave me a full year's exemption for the next year, 1990. I was still struggling, really. I tried to play a little bit at the beginning of that year, but I still wasn't right. Was searching everywhere for somebody to try and help me, and I couldn't find it. It was just really, I had to try and get myself out of it myself eventually, and I couldn't play 1990 enough, and I said, look, I can't use this exemption, and they said, well, we can't give you it again, because, you know, we can't have it open-ended, because then we're setting a precedent with anybody else that might come after you with injuries or illnesses. And I said, as much as that was bitterly disappointing, I had to accept it. So I thought, well, this is the course of things. You know, I haven't particularly covered myself in glory. I'd had some decent finishes along the way in the first 4 or 5 years of my, and then this hit me, and I thought, well, maybe this is me. Maybe I'm just destined to be a club pro or something like that. And so towards the end of that year, I started to play a lot of Tartan Tour, and started to play well. And then 91, I did a combination of Tartan Tour and few invites that the tour gave me, which were one specifically to the Benson Hedges at St Melian. And I did really well. I finished top 10, I think, and I played with Bernard Langer in the last round, and he won, I think. And so typical of Bernard, I remember him saying to Pete Comel on the first tee, I never heard it. It was my caddy at the time, and I can't remember who it was. He said that Bernard had turned round to Pete Coleman, his legendary caddy, to say, look, Pete, we're going to go at Andrew's pace today because he's not been very well. So everything we do is at his pace. So, and I, you know, once I got to know Bernard a lot better in the years after that, it's so typical of the man that he would do and say something like that. But that's one of the rounds that stuck with me, because it was my first footstep on the way back. It was a big tournament down at St Melian, Benson Hedges back then. So I thought, right, I'll have another go at the tour school. I didn't get it that year. They'd moved the tour school by then to the south of France.
Right.
So it was another full year, few invites, 92. By that stage, I thought, right, I was getting a bit of strength back. You know, talked to my family. I said, right, I'm giving this another go. It's almost like I've not really given myself a chance. So, and in some sort of cruel, bizarre way, as much as it was hell to go through at the time with my illness, it probably saved my career, because I was probably heading towards the exit door the way I was playing pre getting my illness, because I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't playing well. And I just thought, no, this isn't for me. And then I had a second chance. I was given a second chance to get my car back. I was in my 30s by now. I was older. I was wiser, a bit more mature, on and off the course, and got my car back eventually at Montpellier, ending 92. 93 was my first season back. And about third, fourth event in at Sevy's course, Nova Sancti Petri, Tour of Spania Masters, ended up winning. I mean, it's just,
how good a feeling was that after all you'd went through? Was it just a massive relief off your back?
Yeah, I think of all the wins I've had from that point on professionally, clearly that was probably the most poignant in terms of, can't think of the right adjective, but I mean, it vindicated my decision to try again. Think, right, somewhere at the back of my mind, when I first turned pro in 1984, this is what should have happened to me 10 years earlier. This is potentially what I was trying to get to 10 years earlier. But the reality was that I wasn't ready then. I just mentally, physically, I just wasn't. It wasn't me. My makeup wasn't ready to achieve that at that time. So to be given the chance to do it, a second chance at a career almost, that was almost the start. And I beat a great field there that week, played the last couple of rounds with Steve Richardson and Eduardo Romero and Langer, Stevie and Monty and Lasbell. They were all in the field there, and it's a deep, strong field. So that was huge for me to get that first win.
Brilliant. We'll move on to your kind of appearance in the Open. You played 6 Opens before making the cut in 91. You finished tied 64th. What were some of your favourite memories playing in the Open, and did you feel a lot of pressure considering it was kind of your home major?
The Open Championship is a funny one for me because I ended up playing 16 Opens. Probably probably about 10 of those I at least had to qualify for them. I'd need to double check that, but I mean, I don't know what it was with the Open. I just never ever played well. I played well to get into them, obviously, qualify. The few days prior to each one, you have to be playing well. So I mean, first one I ever played was in 1982 as an amateur at Troon, and I actually probably played pretty well. My recollection there for an amateur, I think he only missed the cut by 3 or 4 shots, but that was an experience in itself just to be involved in it all. But I think the Open for British players is obviously such a big thing that I could never understand why. And once I got to grips with playing in the Open a few times, I knew what to expect. Not to try and build it up into what it was, just try and treat it as a different tournament. And I never managed to achieve it. I enjoyed playing in the Open. It's a great experience. The atmosphere is fantastic. It's not like I'd never played links golf. I was brought up on links golf. But there's no denying it. My level of performance in the Opens was abysmal. I can't remember how many cuts I missed out of 16. So bitterly disappointing. I never played well in the Open, but I got to play 16 of them.
Does the experience of playing in them beat the kind of how your performance was kind of thing? Do you treasure the experience of playing in them?
Oh, without a doubt. And even though I didn't play obviously as well as I wanted to historically, looking back at it now, each one that I played in, I would have learned something from it. Either at the time, yes, straight away, or it's stored in the mind. It's stored in the memory box of, right, you played in front of hundreds, thousands of people every day, which that in itself takes some adjusting to as a professional. Don't care what anybody says.
Definitely.
And that all helps. So even though it may, the actual results weren't maybe any good, but somewhere it's stored inside you, to help you in future occasions.
Yeah, definitely. 1994, you had a very solid year on the European Tour. You were really consistent. Would you say that was your best year kind of consistently at that point?
Test my memory now. 93, I won in Saint Petri. 94, I remember that. I was quite consistent. One thing that did happen after I won and I started to gain a little bit of confidence back in myself and my body, being able to cope with tournament golf again and the travel and everything. 94, I felt very comfortable because I had an exemption whatever happened. So I rolled free them maybe that year, I can't remember. But I started to feel comfortable in my environment much more than I did the previous time, pre-illness, those 5 years I had in the first stage of my tour career where I didn't feel comfortable. Now I felt, right, this is where I'm meant to be. So, if I got in good positions or I had good weekends or whatever, I didn't run scared of it, or I felt much more at ease, probably, which probably reflected in my results. And then the following year went on to have another victory in Jersey.
Do you remember? Obviously, you were the last ever winner of the Jersey Open. Do you remember who finished second in that tournament?
Oh yeah, I do. I'll never forget it because he got me into so much trouble, both at the prize giving and our night out afterwards. It was Dean Robertson. I'm sure you might know Dino. Dino was a very naughty boy, and I'll never forget where I think maybe Dino might have been his rookie year, or he'd only been on tour for a year maybe. And I remember Jersey. It was a lovely day on the Sunday, and I played great that day. I really did. I really enjoyed winning that tournament because I was really in control on the back nine, and you don't often get a chance to enjoy the situation when you're trying to win a golf tournament. You're too involved in what's going on. Anyway, we're at the prize giving, and it's a lovely guy called Jim Brewer who is very involved in golf in Jersey and prominent in that tournament, and he was at the prize giving doing the ceremony, and he's just about hand over to me, and Dino had gone up for second place and sat down, and he leaned over in my ear, Dino, and he said, "Don't you worry, Andy, we've got 80 grand bail money for tonight." And of course I roared out laughing, and they all turned round, like Jim Brewer and all the presentation, and I just buried my ass. I'm so sorry. Dino was absolutely wetting himself, so I had to compose myself for my speech and all the rest. And so we went out and we had a few beers, that's for sure.
Brilliant.
That was a good night.
See, towards the end of the 90s, like, how were you finding golf? Obviously, it was kind of up and down after that, but how were you finding it?
Yeah, I remember that I would say that my best year that I felt was the following year, 96.
Right.
And I should have won the Irish Open that year. Back in those days, the Irish Open was a really big tournament for us. It was a massive event. Used to get the best crowds on tour for that tournament. And it was the first time it was ever played at Druids Glen, brand new course. And I double bogeyed the last and lost the tournament by a shot to Monty. And, I three-putted the last. And the only thing I did wrong that day, in the process of what I was trying to do to win, was it actually helped me when I got to Wentworth when I won. But I rushed when I got to the green. And anyway, but 96, I know I felt like that I really was sort of felt I was 36. I was reaching. I felt I was like getting towards my peak.
Yeah.
But at that, and I was getting the most out of my game. But then at that stage, you had the influx of guys like who were just starting, and guys like Poulter, Justin Roth, Paul Casey, Darren and Lee had been around for a wee bit while before that, and there was a slight change. There was a change more into a power. You could see that was when the power game was starting to change.
Yeah,
coming in, the equipment was changing, and I sensed that, over a period of time, late 90s, I felt that that era of player was going to overtake me, and my era of player, myself, guys of my era, we were going to find it harder to compete because we were not that kind of a player. You know, Andy Coulthard, I'll tell you, is one of the main reasons that he retired early, because he just knew he couldn't live with that length of player anymore. And a lot of my long-time colleagues were slowly but surely starting to lose their cards. And so your environment of being there around your support system is your friends as well when you're out there. So, you know, there was a sense that maybe it was going to get harder and harder to hold on to my card. And I think 1999 was the first time I sensed a sort of anxiety with that. I got married again that year, so that was quite an important thing for me. And I remember I had a really good week at the Lancôme in Paris, and that sealed my card. But that was way late September, so it was still touch and go by then.
2001 was a dream year for you. You won the PGA at Wentworth. Just obviously that, we'll touch on kind of finishing 26th in order of merit, but what are your memories of that tournament?
Well, still, you know, I mean, clearly the pinnacle of my career. You know, I'm unlikely ever. Well, I know I'm never going to match that. You know, I'm 61 now. I've not got much time left. But I mean, that was probably it was unexpected in terms of when it came. In terms of my age, I was 41 at the time. I had some good years in the mid 90s with wins and solid years after. But like I said, I sensed there was a changing of the guard going on. And I was in my early 40s. Lots of my mates had lost their cards. But going to Wentworth every time, it was one of my favorite venues. Any guy that played for any length of time on the European Tour will tell you that was the week they enjoyed the most, because I enjoyed it more than playing in the Open Championship, to be honest with you, because it was our tournament. It was our big event, and we all knew we were going to play in that. And the minute you, didn't matter how you were playing prior to there, the minute you go in the doors there, you just changed. I did every time. And I played okay a few times there. I played well in the English Championship there once, years and years ago. So it was a place I loved Wentworth. But I could never have foreseen that I would win the tournament that week. But as the week went on and various stages went through in the process, and it got me to being in the 5-shot lead with 1 round to go, I used every ounce of every experience I'd been through in the 30 years prior to that, from right very back when I was a little boy, all the way through winning little things, ups and downs, everything. But the one I used the most was the memory of Drew's Glen when I blew the Irish Open and gave it to Monty. And I said, right, the opportunity is there for you tomorrow. And I had to put to the back of my mind what it would mean for me, my family, my career, everything, if I was able to win the tournament. But I had to draw on what had happened on a lot of other occasions and say, right, the one thing you must do tomorrow, stick to your process, trust, and don't rush. And I had a great caddy. We was Glaswegian boy, Robert Blackie, you know, a great wee guy, cheeky wee monkey he was. You know, always had an answer back for you with everything you said. But he was a good caddy, and he didn't. The great thing about Blackie was, I know that on the the back nine, he was as nervous as hell. but he never showed it.
Yeah.
He never showed he was nervous, because he knew that I was nervous enough for the both of us. But I was trying to go through what I'd learned before, and I was trying to disassociate myself from, right, this is the PGA Championship. This is the biggest tournament we ever play in, other than the Open Championship. Don't think about what it would mean to you until it's all over. And if you've played well enough to win, you have. If you haven't, you've at least not destroyed your chance by doing things that you shouldn't have done.
Yeah, definitely. See, obviously, going on after that, obviously you finished 26th in the order of merit, but you finally make it to a major in America. You played in the 2004 PGA, finished tied 44th. How big a moment was that for you to do well? Can I justify going to America and playing well in a major?
That was the same year I won the PGA, because I must have got an invite on the back of that.
Yeah, 2001. Sorry, yeah,
2001, and it was at Atlanta Athletic Club, Bobby Jones's home course, and Phil Mickelson won.
Yeah.
No, David Toms.
David Toms won it. Yeah,
David Toms won. He beat Mickelson by a shot. That's right, because he laid up at the last and chipped over the water. I remember now. Great course. I loved it. It was great. I've never had an experience of playing in US majors up until then. It was mega hot. I can remember playing with Lauren Roberts in the Open at Rhythm about 6 weeks before, and he said, "Are you coming to Atlanta?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You won't believe how hot it'll be." Oh, all right then. I've been in heat before, you know. And oh man, it was like playing in Asia. It was unbelievable. I remember Andrew Cotter, the journalist, BBC broadcaster. He was there. He was covering it for European Tour at the time, and we were both like white, pale Scottish boy. What the hell's going on here? I mean, literally, it was pissing out of us. And but I managed to make a cut. I played well. I was, after I won the PGA, the only real pressure I had after that was obviously that it put me in a position to make the Ryder Cup team. And we were. I made a huge mistake with my schedule after I won the PGA, because I realized that there was still 3 months, still 3.5 months of the qualifying to go. And I should have spoke to Sam Torrance about my schedule, because I made a huge mistake there, and I played incessantly to try and hold on onto my position.
Yeah.
And one of those tournaments was in America, and I was literally just about to go to the airport to go back for the American Express Championship as well. And that was the day of 9/11. And so yeah, I definitely, looking back, if I could go back in time, I would take a different schedule there.
So Ryder Cup got cancelled that year, didn't it? Obviously, that was maybe in New York?
It did. That was the year. Anyway, I narrowly missed out in the last event in Munich, and not long after that, 9/11 happened, and it was cancelled into 2002.
Yeah,
but
right.
Sam had to keep the same team. So, but yeah, so. I can't remember what you were asking me there. Sorry.
See, obviously, like going into that period, like how did you find kind of later years after that? Was it just a case of trying to keep your cards for as long as possible?
To be honest with you, as much as winning the tournament and the prize money that came with it was fantastic, obviously, life changing for me at the time. The 5-year exemption that came with it at that stage of winning that, it's now down to 3, but it was 5. It used to be 10, actually. When Tino Rocca won it, it was 10.
Right.
And Monty first won it, it was 10. So when I won it, was 5. So I was 41. That was going to take me to 46. I knew I was exempt. I knew I had a job until I was 46.
Yeah.
And when I was 41, I didn't know whether by the time I got to 50, if I was still going to be, one, fit and able, and two, of the mind that I wanted to play seniors golf. I was pretty sure I probably would want to do it, but I knew that I would never want to play all the way through. You know, there's no way I could have gone like Jimenez did and Monty did, but virtually playing all the way through European Tour golf and then into seniors golf.
Yeah.
I was going to have a break.
So did you have a backup? Did you have a backup plan? Or what you wanted to do?
46, 47 was always going to be right. That's going to be the end of my exemption. I'm pretty sure I didn't know at 41 what I was going to feel like at 45, 46.
Aye.
But by the time the last couple of years I was exempt, 2005 it really started. You know, by that stage, you know, I was starting to hit a fair little bit shorter. The other guys are getting longer. I was less competitive, you know, and the last couple of years, 2006, that was a year too long. I was still exempt, but it was I shouldn't really have played that year because I hated it. I just didn't want to play anymore.
And was that because
I'd be at an event and I think, why am I here? I just don't want to be here. I'm golfed out. I'm done.
Yeah.
I need a break. I need something different to get me away from this. All my friends had lost their cards. I couldn't play against the young boys anymore.
Was that a big reason because of how long they were hitting it and how much kind of stronger they were?
I mean, it was demoralising to play in tournaments where you were 30 yards behind the other guys off the tee. Yeah. You know, you're such a deep competitive nature within yourself. If you're going to a venue that you know, and I started to look at the schedule and I started to think, right, there's no point me going there, and there's no point me going there, but I'll go and play in Hilversum in the Dutch Open on the tree line shorter course because that's right up the alley. But you know, you can't just play 1 week out of 6 weeks. So you know, I had a terrible time in 2006. You know, I started to get a little bit depressed again about everything, and said to Kirsten, my wife, I said, you know, Dad, I need to get out of this environment. I need a break. And that was it. I lost my card comfortably that year. First time I'd ever really lost it. Played a few tournaments the next year on invites or where I had been in various exempt categories. And, you know, I think that was maybe about 7 or 8 events I played that year, and then 2 or 3 that. And then I just kept my hand in up here playing Tartan Tour. I'd made the decision then, give my mind and my body 2 or 3 years rest. Yeah. And get ready properly for the seniors tour. I'd spoke to a couple of the guys on the seniors tour at that time, and they said, you must be ready. You can't just not play tournament golf for years and then expect to pitch up. Yeah, the seniors. These guys are too good. They'll whip your ass. So, you know, I swallowed my pride a few times. I played Europro against young guys. I could have been their father just to get a game to keep my game ticking over. And, you know, Paul Broadhurst did exactly the same as me when he turned 50. And look what happened to him. Aye. Because he was prepared to do that process. So, yeah, I was ready. When 50 came, I was rearing. I was ready. I had my zest back again. Yeah. 4 years previously in 2006, I hated it. Hated it's probably a bit expressive, but I hated being in the environment because I knew I couldn't compete. And that wasn't me. If I can't compete, there's no point in being there. And see, obviously, you've been on to the seniors tour. You've won a couple of times. How much do you enjoy it? And is it good? Is it a good standard, do you think? Oh, and it's only got better. Joined joined the seniors tour in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And my birthday fell in the end of March, and the boys had already played 4 events by then, so I was playing a little bit of catch up. Took me maybe 5 or 6 events to get used to it, the tournament environment again, but also the fact that there was no cuts and it was 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And the other than when, you know, senior British Open or senior majors in the States or our PGA Championship, but the rest of it was 3 rounds, sprints, and that was where I had to change my mind thing. And took me a while to get used to that, but once I did, and it was good to see guys that I hadn't seen for a few years as well, because a lot of those guys had left the European Tour long before I left the European Tour as well. So some guys I hadn't seen for over 10 years. And then there was new guys that I'd never even met before, who were senior tour players who'd grabbed the opportunity to play in the European Senior Tour. You know, guys from abroad. You know, 2 guys from Delray Cambridge and Jerry Bruner, and loads of guys from South Africa. And I absolutely loved it.
Brilliant.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. Those were my most enjoyable 5 years in professional golf, were my first 5 years on the seniors tour. Brilliant. Because it was not as intensive as the main tour, but it was very, very competitive, because you still had guys really, you know, livings to earn, and also you never lose your competitive, what that means. And the standard was far higher than I expected. And as that's gone on, you know, there's been a big jump in standard over the last 5 years with the influx of players that have come on. So very, very, it's a great tour.
Brilliant. Yeah. See, obviously, for the future, is the plan just to play on it for as long as you can?
Yeah, basically, you know, by the time we can maybe get back this June, we had a Zoom meeting last week to confirm that we're playing in Trevose in Cornwall in June. But that'll be my first event since October 2019. Now, that's a long time, as I touched on in the early part of the call. 2 years out of my life at that stage, it's a lot. So I don't know what to expect when I go back, to be honest with you. I hope I'll enjoy it. But I'm not 100% sure I will, because I almost feel like COVID has forced me into semi-retirement already. And do I have the determination or will to keep playing and putting the hours in that is needed? And that's the problem. It's not a problem. I mean, I have the will to do it. It's just whether my body lets me do it, because I start to get loads of little niggly little injuries that last for 2-3 weeks, and then that one goes, and then something else happens, and so it's a constant MOT with my therapists and you know, osteopaths at home keeping me going. So I want to keep going as long as I can, but I'm realistic enough to know that maybe this year and the end next year that might just be about it. I might not have an exemption by the end of next year anyway, so I don't know.
Brilliant. Are you all right closing with some quick fire questions?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Out of your whole career, who would you say was the best player you ever played around with?
Oh, right. My favourite player of all time that I ever played with was Eduardo Romero. I loved the bloke. I loved the way he played golf. He was just a gentleman. I would say the best player I've played with overall game, it's a close one, but I would say Bernard Langer.
Thought you would say him. Your favourite course you've ever played at?
Birkdale.
Okay. People always say it's a hard course. How, like, see the open courses, what would you say is the hardest open course?
That to me is the best open course, because it's it's a good, strong challenge, but it's fair. There's none of the nuances that cause a lot of You know, it's not like St Andrews where you have to rely on luck a lot there with your bounces. And Muirfield is probably the closest in terms of a pure golf course to Birkdale, but I just prefer Birkdale to Muirfield. And you know, I get asked my favourite golf course loads of times by my partners in pro-ams more especially, and I always say, like, I've been lucky enough to play loads of fantastic golf courses over the world, so I like to try and pick various ones in various parts of the globe. But if I was to be pressed on one in the UK, it would be Birkdale.
Brilliant. Your dream 4-ball?
That would be, you know, fortunately my dad is still with us, so he can't play anymore. He's 87, but he taught me everything I know, my game, my mental side, everything. So it'd be my father. Jack Nicklaus was my hero when I was growing up, and Seve was the most inspirational guy I ever was around at golf. So it'd be that my 4.
Brilliant. Interesting fact about yourself that the viewers might not know.
I was on the verge of qualifying to be an architect before I turned professional golf. Yeah. So if you want your house drawn, I can maybe vaguely remember how to do it.
Brilliant. Favourite film or TV show?
Favourite film, I can't, every time I watch it, I've watched it dozens of times, The Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery. I love that film.
Brilliant.
TV show, I'm a great fan of, there's a triumvirate of programs that have been on for a few years based in Chicago Fire, PD and Med. Chicago PD is my favourite TV program. I love the guy who's the lieutenant in that. It's just fantastic.
Brilliant. Best friend in golf?
Best friend in golf? Wow, that's a good one. I'm going to upset one or two if I had to pick one out in particular. I would have to say, because it goes back to my teens and has been there as a constant all the way through my professional career as well. Won't be very well known to a lot of guys, maybe younger, especially younger guys, but a guy called Andrew Sherborne, who won a couple of times in the European Tour, both in Madrid, strangely enough, Spanish Open and Madrid Open. But Sherby's been away in my life from 14, 15 years old, and was literally speaking to him yesterday about Trevose, which is coming up. So Sherby's great guy, great golfer, great guy to be around, good company. So I'm lucky. I mean, most of the Scottish guys, you know, on tour will tell you, it's really, really important to have guys with you through your journey who are going through the same thing as you, and they understand what's going on in your head all the time. So,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Final question, your go-to club?
Driver.
Is it?
I would say for me, it's been the baseline, the heart of all my golf really. I've always been a really good driver of the ball. Yeah, it's the rock foundation that my game has always been built on. I've always been a pretty good driver, still am, I would say. Yeah, certainly not the putter at the moment, anyway.
Brilliant, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I can't thank you enough. I've thoroughly enjoyed
No,
talking
it's
to
been
you.
a thrill. It's no bother.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Okay.